Recording. So hello, this is the July 27th, 2022 edition of the SIG CLI bi-weekly meeting. I'm Sean Sullivan, I'm your host. We don't have much in the way of topics today. We have a single one, but we'll begin with some announcements. So the most important, or at least the most topical, will probably be the code freeze, which is within less than a week. For 125, the 125 release, we have a code freeze. So if you have anything to get done, then you've got a little bit less than a week. And then that release is scheduled to eventually go out on August 23rd. So I had just recently deleted this next item because I saw that this particular rename of the repository branch is going to be postponed until 126. If you want to know more about that, please click on that. That's going to be changing the branch from master to main. It'll happen in the next release. So it seems like we just changed the Golang version to 118, and now we're already moving it to 119. So if you see an error saying that you need to update your Go to 119 RC2 when you're building, then click on that link. It'll give you all the context you need. I believe that is going to happen directly after the code freeze, so within about a week. There is more context as you click through that link. And I'm not sure if we brought this up before, but there is a contributor summit this year for the North American KubeCon in Detroit, and that will be the Monday, October 24th. So is there anyone else who has anything else they'd like to announce? Okay, why don't we move on to introductions then? This is the part of our program where you are, if you would like to introduce yourself, if you're new or you haven't been here for a while, and you'd like to meet some of your other colleagues, go ahead and please introduce yourself. And this is completely voluntary. So if you don't want to, then you don't have to. Is there anyone who would like to introduce themselves? Okay, so why don't we move on to the topics then? Brian, would you like to talk about this particular topic?
Sure. Yeah. So this is the link there is to a PR that I opened that fixes an issue where it's related to after server-side apply became the default, and there's now a field called managed, or a field on YAML, in the YAML that called managed fields, that will show up if you do a git with -o YAML and then you pass show managed fields equals true. You'll see all like the internal metadata that it uses to manage server-side apply. What happens is if you do a kubectl diff, by default, or not even by default, but always, it's going to give you back the diff, including those managed fields. And that diff actually gets kind of ugly. So there's really two issues here. One is, do we want to see the managed fields in the diff? Because it's like a lot of information that isn't really visible to the user normally unless they request it. And then number two, the diff that's coming back is messy because when there's multiple fields that are managed fields, they get flipped around, and then the diff ends up being really, really big looking when really it's not. And so in the PR, I have I have the old output and the new output, and you can kind of see what in the old output, what it looks like. There's a big giant plus section and a big giant minus section, when really all it was, I think the time was actually what was changed, and it got flipped around. So the question is, so Antoine commented on the PR and said, hey, maybe we should talk about this. I think it's helpful to see the managed fields. My pull request has the option to include the managed fields in the diff, but by default, they would not be included. And so I guess this is just kind of a chance for people to say what they think about this diff situation and talk about it. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm the one who requested like that we talk about it at the meeting because I thought.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I forgot.
It's okay. Yeah, because I thought there might be different opinions on this. I would argue that even if showing or diffing the managed fields is generally useful, diff doesn't actually support that right now because of the timestamp sorting issue that you mentioned. So it's sort of like got the managed fields just by default started showing up at some point, and we never actually implemented support for the way that they're sorted. So right now, diff doesn't actually show a useful output for managed fields, whether we have a flag or not. So from that perspective, I think adding a flag would actually be somewhat misleading, because then, if you enable the flag, then it does something useless. So I would argue that if we do have the flag, we also need to find a way to fix the sorting to make the output viable.
No, that sounds reasonable. So one option would be don't add the flag, but go ahead and create an issue to fix the sorting and then add the flag at the same time, or go ahead and try it all here in this PR. I don't know. I almost didn't add the flag because I thought, well, would anybody really ever want to diff the managed fields? And so I added it because I was afraid somebody might want to, but you're right. It's not really helpful even if you see the diff. So the flag is sort of meaningless as it is right now.
Yeah, so the third option is disable it because it's effectively not supported right now. And then if we get the feature request that folks do in fact want to see it, then we can actually implement it for real so that it works with the flag.
No, that's a good point. Like maybe we shouldn't automatically create the issue. We should wait for people to, unless there's somebody here that says, hey, I want that. And then I guess we could create the issue. I don't know. Is there demand for that? I guess Antoine seemed to think that he might like to see it. Oh, here he is. He's on now. Hi, Antoine. We're talking about the kubectl diff and the managed fields stuff, and we were just kind of debating whether it makes sense to even have the flag if we don't fix the ordering output of the managed fields.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I don't know. What can we do about the ordering?
Can I ask a question? What is the purpose of sorting, managed field sorting according to the time? Why we are doing this?
So from the API server perspective, we need to be stable. So things need to not move. And in order to keep things stable, we sort them by multiple criteria, but time is one of them. And we also, sorry about that. And so, yeah, unfortunately, we had to fix it because the spec for the API server was that the most recent needs to be on the top, and when you change something, it should update the timestamp. So this is why we have the ordering, and I think the ordering is right. I guess one of the questions we could have is, can we resort differently for diff specifically, client side, just so that the diff is not that bad?
Yeah, I was exactly suggesting this. Can we do this manual reordering in diff command? Maybe it solves our problem. Of course, by discarding the time fields after sorting, because time will always be different.
Right. Yeah, this is, yeah, it's an option. We could could try and think about that. That's why I want us to take the time to think it through before we disable everything forever.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's saying we should definitely disable it forever. It's just that it's effectively broken right now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm concerned if we take the position of disabling it by default and not even having a flag. It's almost, it's not equivalent, but it's pretty close to we'll never see it again. Yeah, because I think in my opinion, by default, we should see the change in the manage fields when we do a diff. I think it's pretty useful to see who is stealing what and how the ownership changes. But again, I understand it's not useful right now.
I agree.
I think it can be useful, but those are, I don't know, for the average end user that if I had to guess, that's probably not the part they're looking at. They're probably thinking about the changes that they themselves are responsible for. So I can see it definitely being useful to have as a capability, but I could see the like use case being similar to Git, where you want to opt in to having, it's quite a large amount of information in the output. Where like the default would be for it to be off, but there'd be a way to enable it like we do for Git.
Yeah, I think I mostly agree with that. The big difference with Git is that Git is completely unusable. Or it's massively disrupted by the very long managed fields, and most of it you don't care about. The typical use case for diff is that you have like 1 or 2 lines that are changing because of what you just changed. And so it's not as disruptive as it is for Git. But
Maybe
yeah,
it depends. Like if you expect to see 2 lines and you actually see 20, that's still pretty annoying.
yeah, that I agree with. No, we could disable it by default, and okay, yeah, that's possibly an option. We could even not have the flag yet and add the flag as we fix the bug, or we could have the. I'm pretty convinced eventually we'd want to have the flag, so we could probably do it right now, even if it's slightly broken.
I'm inclined to say that if we would remove it, we would get an issue immediately that we introduce a breaking change. So for just that sake, I would probably introduce the flag, even if it will be disabled by default. As in, you'll have to explicitly say, "Oh yeah, I want to see the managed fields," and then try to solve the sorting separately. I'm still seeing that as a separate thing.
I'm perfectly fine with that. Yeah.
From just showing the managed fields, I'm pretty sure that the majority of the users will appreciate the fact that that we're not showing the managed fields by default, and those that will still want to see it will basically get the previous behavior by explicitly specifying the flag, and then we can fix the sorting separately, because something tells me that may be a little bit more work that will be required.
I'm not opposed to that, but I guess I still think it's pretty weird to hide, like to have a feature behind a flag that just doesn't work. Like you said, it's a breaking change, but I don't know if I agree with that aspect, in that, you know, the output right now is not useful. We can't diff those fields.
Yeah, but that's basically the same what we did with the managed fields in the Get.
Also, I wouldn't say it's broken. It's hard to read and it's not as helpful as it could be, but I wouldn't say it's broken.
Okay, if there is some way that you can, yeah, that if there's some way in which it's useful, then I'm fine with the flag.
I'll try to review the PR from you, Brian.
Okay, thanks.
If there will be no bigger issues, I'll just tag it as is. We can address everything else in the follow-ups.
since code freeze is approaching, is there anybody here who has a PR that is sort of undergoing some discussion that we should touch on today as sort of a last opportunity to discuss as a group before code freeze?
Or alternatively, if you have any one of us assigned to them and we haven't looked at them, feel free to ping us on Slack. One thing with regards to your PR, Brian, I'm still considering the name. I just looked because I don't remember off the top of my head. The get is show managed fields. I wonder if somehow the show managed fields just does not apply good for the diff command. That's probably the only concern that I have. I don't have a good idea for the name yet.
Yeah, I would rather be consistent than perfectly correct. So I think personally, I would vote for using the same flag we use for get.
Yep. Okay.
I
can
agree
make
with
that change.
that as well.
Yep. I went back and forth on that, and I think your point is right. It's better to be consistent than to be like 100% accurate, and rather be like 99% accurate. And I guess I got hung up on semantics there.
That's literally what I was just going back and forth in my head, and going through the code and like trying to figure out whether I personally prefer consistency as much as I could. We probably messed it up the first time when we did the show managed field. We could probably name it differently or more generically. But yeah, let's keep it consistent. I don't know, just easier for people to find.
Yep, will do.
So I added to the agenda with some notes. Does that resolution sound correct? So are we agreed that we're the diff for the managed fields off by default, and that we'll have the flag to show the diff of the managed fields? Did I get that correct?
Yep.
Okay, and the flag will be the same as the one for kubectl get on show managed fields. Okay. Okay, that's actually was the only topic we had for today so far. So is there anything else that anybody else would like to bring up, since we still have about 40 minutes left? Okay, I'm gonna put out a call for stand-ups if we have any of those. Anybody interested in giving a brief overview, a stand-up for a particular subproject? Okay, I guess we're gonna have a short meeting and give you back plenty of your time today. I'm gonna stay on the call and stop the recording now.